There is a place on this planet where the land still speaks louder than people. A place where the horizon never ends and the sky feels too big for the world beneath it. Where silence isn't empty, it's powerful. This is Mongolia. The first thing you notice is the space. Not just distance, but freedom. No crowded streets. No endless buildings. Just open land, stretching farther than your eyes can follow. Grasslands that move like waves under the wind. Mountains that rise quietly in the distance. Deserts that look endless and feel timeless. And above it all, the sky so wide, it almost feels unreal. Mongolia is often called the land of the eternal blue sky. And when you stand there, you understand why. The sky dominates everything. It doesn't sit above you. It surrounds you. It reminds you how small you are. Now, before we go deeper into this world, if you're someone who wants to understand places like this, places that still live by nature's rules, not modern comfort, then follow this journey. Because Mongolia isn't just a country, it's a different way of seeing life. In Mongolia, nature is not something you admire from a distance. It's something you live with. Every day, the climate here doesn't ease you in. It tests you. Winter arrives like a force. Temperatures drop so low that even the air feels dangerous. The cold isn't just something you feel. It's something that presses against you. It slows movement. It punishes mistakes. It demands respect. And then, just when you think you understand it, summer comes. The same land that was frozen solid turns alive. Green spreads across the steppe. Rivers begin to flow again. Animals roam freely under the open sky. But even then, nature doesn't relax. Storms roll in fast. Winds sweep across the plains without warning. Everything here is unpredictable. That unpredictability shapes the people. Mongolian culture is built around movement. Not because they want to move, but because they have to. For centuries, Mongolians have lived as nomads, not tied to one place, but connected to the land as a whole. They follow the seasons. They move with their animals. They adapt to what the environment allows. Their homes reflect this. The jur, a round portable dwelling, can be built and taken down in hours. It's simple, but incredibly effective. Warm in the winter, cool in the summer, strong against the wind. Inside a jur, life is structured, intentional, and deeply traditional. Every object has meaning. Every position has purpose. There's a quiet order that reflects the discipline of their lifestyle. Hospitality is another core of Mongolian culture, but it's not the kind you see in cities. It's deeper. In a land this harsh, helping someone is not just kindness, it's survival. If a traveler appears at your home, you don't ask many questions. You welcome them. Because tomorrow, you might be the one in need. There's also a deep respect for nature, almost spiritual. The mountains, the rivers, the sky itself are not just physical things. They are alive with meaning. Many Mongolians follow traditions rooted in Tengrism, an ancient belief system centered around the eternal blue sky. It teaches balance, respect, connection. Even today, you'll find people tying blue scarves to sacred places, offering prayers to the land, acknowledging forces greater than themselves. Because in Mongolia, you don't try to dominate nature, you learn your place within it. And then there are the horses. In many parts of the world, horses are tools or sports. In Mongolia, they are life. The bond between a Mongolian and their horse is something deeper than ownership. It's trust. It's partnership. It's survival. Across the open steppe, a horse's freedom. It allows movement. It connects distant places. It becomes part of your identity. That connection begins early. Children learn to ride almost as soon as they can walk, not as a hobby, but as a necessity. Because here, skills are not optional. They are essential. One of the most powerful expressions of Mongolian culture is the Naadam festival, a celebration of strength, tradition, and identity. It brings together what they call the three manly games: wrestling, horse racing, archery. But this isn't just sport, it's history, still alive. Wrestling is about honor and endurance. Horse racing stretches across vast distances, sometimes with children as riders. Archery reflects precision, discipline, and control. During Naadam, you don't just watch events. You feel the spirit of Mongolia. You see pride. You see resilience. You see a culture that has refused to fade. Because despite the modern world, despite cities growing and lifestyles changing, Mongolia has held on to something rare: authenticity. There are no illusions here, no pretending, no hiding from reality. If the weather is harsh, you face it. If the land is dry, you adapt. If life is difficult, you endure. And that endurance becomes identity. In a world that's constantly chasing comfort, Mongolia reminds you of something different. That strength comes from challenge. That clarity comes from simplicity. That freedom that comes from letting go of control. Out on the steppe, with nothing but land, sky, and wind, you start to understand something most people never do. How little you actually need, and how powerful that realization is. Because when everything unnecessary is stripped away, what remains is real. Mongolia is not loud. It doesn't try to impress you. It doesn't demand attention. But if you pay attention, it teaches you. It teaches patience, because nothing here moves fast. It teaches resilience, because nothing here is easy. It teaches humility, because nature is always greater. And maybe that's why, even in a rapidly changing world, Mongolia still stands apart. Not because it resisted change completely, but because it refused to lose itself. This is a land where traditions still breathe, where nature still leads, where people still remember what it means to truly live with the world, not against it. And in that silence, in that vast open space, there's something rare. Clarity. You have to go deeper than what you see, because on the surface, it looks empty. Miles of land, with almost nothing on it. No cities, no crowds, no noise, just silence. But that silence is not emptiness, it's presence. Out there, you begin to hear things you've never noticed before. The sound of wind moving across grass, not above it but through it. The distant echo of animals, carried for miles without interruption. The creak of leather, the rhythm of hooves, the quiet breath of life continuing without needing attention. In Mongolia, nothing competes for your focus, so your focus becomes sharper. Time slows down, not because the clock changes, but because your mind does. There are no constant notifications, no artificial urgency, just the natural rhythm of the world. Sunrise means something, not just light, but warmth. Not just a new day, but another chance to continue. Sunset is not just beautiful, it's a signal. Prepare, adjust, endure what comes next. Because night in Mongolia is a different world entirely. The temperature drops quickly, the wind grows colder, and the darkness feels deeper, with no city lights to interrupt it. The sky reveals everything. Stars you didn't know existed. Clusters so dense, they look like spilled light. The Milky Way stretches clearly across the sky, not as an idea, but as something real and visible. And in that moment, you understand something powerful. You are not the center of anything. And strangely, that realization doesn't weaken you. It frees you. Because when you accept how small you are, you stop pretending to control everything. That's one of the quiet lessons Mongolia teaches. Control is an illusion. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control the land. You cannot control what tomorrow brings. But you can control how you respond. And that is where strength is built. This mindset runs deep in Mongolian culture. There's a calmness in the way people move. Not slow, but deliberate. Nothing is wasted. Not time, not energy, not effort. Even conversations reflect this. They are not rushed, not filled with unnecessary words. Silence is not awkward here. It's normal, respected. Because when you live in a land like this, you learn that not everything needs to be said. Some things are understood. Generations pass down knowledge. Not through books, but through living. A father teaching his son how to read the sky. A mother showing her daughter how to prepare for sudden weather changes. Elders sharing stories, not for entertainment, but for survival. These are not lessons you can Google. They are learned through experience, through mistakes, through time. And that creates a different kind of intelligence. Not academic, not theoretical, but practical, real. You know when a storm is coming, just by the way the wind shifts. You know where to move, just by observing the land. You know when something feels wrong, even if you can't explain it, because your senses are sharper. Your awareness is higher, and that awareness comes from living close to nature. There's also a deep emotional resilience. In Mongolia, life can change quickly. A harsh winter known as a dzud can wipe out entire herds. Families can lose everything in a single season. And yet, they rebuild. There's no long period of collapse, no endless complaining. There's acceptance, then action. Because when survival is at stake, you don't have the luxury of staying broken. You move forward. This doesn't mean life is easy. It means life is faced directly. And that creates people who are grounded, not easily shaken, not easily distracted. People who understand that struggle is not an exception. It's part of life. And maybe that's why there's a quiet confidence in Mongolian culture. Not loud, not showy, but real. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need attention. It exists Because it has been tested over and over again, through extreme winters, through droughts, through change. And still, it remains. Even the animals here reflect that toughness. Horses that survive freezing temperatures, livestock that endure harsh conditions, wildlife that adapts to extremes most environments never experience. Everything in Mongolia is built to survive. There's no excess, no softness, just function, purpose, endurance. And yet, there's beauty in that simplicity. Not the kind of beauty that tries to impress you, but the kind that reveals itself slowly. A lone horse standing against the horizon, a river cutting quietly through the land, clouds casting moving shadows across endless grass, moments that feel almost untouched. Because in many ways, they are. Mongolia is one of the last places where you can feel what the world used to be like, before everything became controlled, before everything became structured. Back when life was uncertain, but real. And maybe that's why people who experience Mongolia never forget it. Not because it entertains them, but because it changes them. It strips away distractions, forces reflection. It makes you question what actually matters. Is it comfort, or is it strength? Is it convenience, or is it freedom? Because out there, you can't rely on systems, you rely on yourself. And that realization can be uncomfortable, but it's also powerful. Because once you understand that, you stop depending on things that can disappear. You become more aware, more present. You start noticing small things. The direction of the wind, the color of the sky before a storm, the way animals behave when something is about to change. These details become information, and that information can mean survival. In Mongolia, nothing is random. Everything has a pattern, a rhythm. And the more you pay attention, the more that rhythm reveals itself. Seasons are not just dates on a calendar, they are experiences. Winter is not just cold, it is endurance. Spring is not just change, it is relief. That connection is something the modern world has started to lose. We build environments that protect us from nature, control temperature, control food, control movement. And in doing so, we disconnect. But in Mongolia, that connection is still intact. You feel the wind, you feel the cold, you feel the heat. You don't escape it. You experience it. And through that experience, you adapt. Not just physically, but mentally. You become more patient, more resilient, more aware, because the environment demands it. And when the environment shapes you, the result is something real. Not manufactured, not artificial, but earned. That's what makes Mongolia different. It doesn't try to shape itself for people. People shape themselves for it. And that shift in perspective changes everything. Because when you stop expecting the world to adjust to you, you start becoming stronger, more capable, more grounded. And maybe that's the real lesson hidden in Mongolia. Not just how to survive in extreme conditions, but how to live without depending on comfort, how to exist without constant distraction, how to find clarity in simplicity, and how to build strength that doesn't rely on anything external. Because in the end, everything can be taken away, except who you've become. And in Mongolia, who you become is tested every single day. And over time, that constant testing does something to a person. It removes illusion. You stop believing life is supposed to be easy. You stop expecting things to go your way. Instead, you prepare. Because in Mongolia, hope is not a strategy. Readiness is. You don't wait for things to improve. You adjust. And that mindset spreads across every part of life, even in the way people think about time. In many places, time feels rushed, always moving, always short, always slipping away. But in Mongolia, time feels different. It's not chased. It's used. There's patience here that feels almost unfamiliar. Things take as long as they need to take. Travel takes time. Work takes time. Seasons take time. And no one is trying to rush the process. Because rushing doesn't change reality. It only creates stress. So instead, they move with the rhythm of life. And that rhythm is not fast, but it is steady. And there's strength in that steadiness. Because when you move steadily, you don't burn out. You endure. That endurance shows itself in the smallest details. The way a fire is carefully maintained, not just lit. The way tools are preserved, not constantly replaced. The way animals are observed, not controlled. Everything is approached with intention. Nothing is taken lightly. Because in a land like this, small mistakes can have big consequences. And that awareness builds discipline. A quiet, consistent discipline, not forced by rules, but shaped by reality. And over generations, that discipline becomes culture. You can see it in the way people carry themselves. There's no unnecessary rush, no wasted movement, just efficiency, precision, purpose. And yet, there's also calm. Because when you accept life as it is, you stop fighting things you can't control. That acceptance doesn't make people weak. It makes them stable, grounded in reality. And that grounding creates clarity. You know what matters. You know what doesn't. And you don't waste energy confusing the two. This clarity extends beyond survival. It shapes relationships. In Mongolia, relationships are not built on convenience. They are built on trust. Because in an environment where survival matters, trust is everything. You rely on people. People rely on you. And that mutual dependence creates strong bonds, not shallow connections, not temporary interactions, but real relationships built over time. There's also a strong sense of independence, not isolation, but self-reliance. You learn to handle challenges on your own, to solve problems without waiting for help, because help may not always come. And that independence creates confidence, not arrogance, not ego, but quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, because it already knows. This balance between independence and community is part of what makes Mongolian culture so unique. You are strong on your own, but you are not alone. And that combination is powerful. Then there's the relationship with movement. In many places, you act based on what is necessary, and that simplicity creates efficiency. Life becomes clearer, not easier, but clearer, and clarity is powerful. Because when you see things clearly, you make better choices. You waste less time. You conserve more energy. You focus on what matters. And over time, those small advantages add up. They build resilience. They build strength. They build a mindset that can handle anything. That's why Mongolia doesn't just produce survivors. It produces people who are prepared. Prepared for uncertainty. Prepared for difficulty. Prepared for change. Because change is constant here. The land changes. The weather changes. Circumstances change. And instead of resisting that change, they move with it. Adaptation becomes natural. Not something you think about, something you do. And that adaptability is one of the most valuable traits a person can have. Because in any environment, the ability to adjust determines survival. Mongolia teaches that lesson early, and it reinforces it every single day, through every season, every challenge, every experience, until it becomes part of who you are. Not something you learned, something you became. And maybe that's the most powerful thing about Mongolia. It doesn't just teach you skills, it transforms you. It strips away what's unnecessary, reveals what's essential, and forces you to confront reality without distractions. Because in a place like this, there's nowhere to hide. Not from the environment, not from the truth, not from yourself. And when you face all of that, something changes. You become stronger, not just physically, but mentally, more resilient, more aware, more grounded. And that transformation stays with you long after you leave. Because once you've experienced that level of reality, everything else feels different. Less urgent, less overwhelming, less important. You start to see through distractions. You recognize what truly matters, and you carry that understanding with you. That's why Mongolia isn't just a place you visit. It's a place that leaves an imprint, a quiet shift in perspective, a deeper understanding of life, and a reminder that strength doesn't come from comfort. It comes from challenge, from facing what's difficult, from adapting to what's unpredictable, from continuing even when things are hard. And in Mongolia, that is not optional. It's the way life is lived, every day, without exception. And maybe that's why, in a world that's constantly changing, Mongolia still feels unchanged. Not because nothing has evolved, but because its core remains the same. A deep connection to land, a respect for nature, a culture built on resilience, and a way of life that refuses to be softened. Because out there, softness doesn't survive. Strength does. And that strength is everywhere. In the land, in the people, in the silence, waiting to be understood.